Happy holidays and welcome to DCTV's special presentation in honor of Giving Tuesday. I'm Lisa D., Director of Community Engagement, Programming, and Communications here at DCTV. There are more than 12,000 nonprofit organizations in Washington, D.C., and according to the Center for Nonprofit Advancement, 8,000 of those are registered 501c3 organizations. These nonprofits have a great economic impact in the district, generating more than $40 billion in annual revenue. What's also commendable is the enormous amount of volunteer work that is performed in our communities. Our mission here at DCTV is to provide meaningful media to the residents of Washington, D.C. and the surrounding communities. We are always hard at work providing a platform for local voices to be heard and to spark meaningful dialogue to address a variety of issues affecting those residents. In 2019, DCTV launched a unique capacity building grant program for the purpose of helping nonprofit organizations increase their communications capacity and to cultivate our communities with meaningful media. We developed this grant with the guidance of nonprofit leaders who told us that getting the message out about their organization's mission is one of the biggest challenges they face, especially in this ever-evolving digital world. So today, we are here to tell their stories and to give a platform to these meaningful messages of impact. It is truly an honor for all of us here at DCTV to celebrate Giving Tuesday and to showcase the many nonprofit organizations here in Washington, D.C. and all over the DMV that are making a huge difference in the lives of others. As communities continue to face challenges and difficulties due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the services and assistance these nonprofit organizations provide to the residents are more important than ever. Giving Tuesday is celebrated each year on the first Tuesday after Thanksgiving. It was started back in 2012 and is recognized globally as a way of encouraging people to give and to help others. It is our hope that by watching this 24-hour special programming event, you'll be inspired to find out more about these organizations and the important work that they continue to do on a daily basis. Throughout this special event, you'll be introduced to various members of DCTV staff as we come together in honor of Giving Tuesday. But first, we'll hear from the CEO of the Center for Nonprofit Advancement and the Chief Service Officer and Director of the Mayor's Office on Volunteerism and Partnerships, Serve DC, with a message for our communities about nonprofits and volunteerism. Enjoy.
Nonprofits over this last year and through the pandemic have really stood in the gap. We have reached communities that government and no other support systems could get to. The communities hardest hit and the people hardest hit with challenges. So when you look at organizations that have distributed PPE, have helped to get technology to homes where young people were being challenged with virtual schooling, providing food and even shelter, those are some of the things that were so important and more important during this challenging time that nonprofit organizations were able to execute gracefully and masterfully. There is a tremendous partnership with government and nonprofits in the District of Columbia. It's Serve DC, the Mayor's Office for Volunteerism and Engagement that the center works with to really ensure that every corner of the district has support, is meeting the needs of people in communities and making sure that that drive that we talk about is actually happening.
In 2020 and 2021, our nonprofit community stepped up in epic ways, especially during the onset of the pandemic. They leaned in to ensure that there was no disruption of essential services on behalf of our residents by providing access to food delivery, housing, and health and social services. Our mayor and local government officials also look to nonprofits to be the trusted relationship and provider to their constituents for COVID-19 testing and vaccine availability. So they have really been at the backbone and the foundation of our community during this really sensitive and unprecedented time.
stay involved, stay connected. It's not enough to just sit around and watch and see what's happening. It's super important for us all to do our part and share in the work of our communities.
Hello, I'm Lisa D., Director of Community Engagement, Programming, and Communications at DCTV. Earlier this year, we aired a 30-minute special presentation titled Unprecedented: Powering Through the Pandemic. The show featured 5 nonprofit organizations in DC as they shared their story of how the COVID-19 pandemic impacted their organizations and the various ways in which they pivoted their daily activities to continue to provide much-needed resources to communities. It was amazing to hear them talk about how their passion for what they do inspired them to power through the pandemic. Those organizations are Beacon House, Hillcrest Children and Family Center, CASA of Prince George's County, Some So Others Might Eat, and Comfort Cases. Let's take a look at their stories. We've all heard a lot about how the COVID-19 pandemic has impacted the nonprofit sector, which employs more than 10% of America's private workforce, more jobs than in manufacturing, construction, or finance. Jobs in the nonprofit sector make up more than a quarter of the workforce here in DC. Hello everyone, I'm Lisa Haynes. Our mission here at DCTV is to provide meaningful media to Washington, D.C.'s communities. We're always hard at work providing a platform for local voices to be heard and to address a variety of issues affecting the area's residents. Today on DCTV's 2-part special, we're highlighting 5 of the district's nonprofit organizations that have continued to persevere and service our communities through uncertain times. Joining me for part 1 of our special is Juanita Price, CEO of the Hillcrest Children and Family Center, and Shannon Herbert, Vice Chair of the Board of Beacon House. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
I'm going to start with you, Juanita. The Hillcrest Children and Family Center has powered through not 1, but 2 pandemics now. I'll explain for our viewers in just a moment. But first, here's a sneak peek at your mission and your beautiful facility that we had a chance to highlight late 2020.
At Hillcrest Children and Family Center, we put our clients first, offering up-to-date clinical services in a confidential, caring environment. Throughout our 205-year history, we have offered primary prevention and mental health services to children and families in the Washington, D.C. area.
We dig deep into the core of the matter to discover the root of the problems and to find best solutions. We pride ourselves on offering the community a continuum of services such as therapy, substance abuse treatment, school-based behavioral health services, and employment and housing support.
Hillcrest Children and Family Center, healing wounds from the past to embrace a healthy future. 205 years of passion and purpose.
Now, as we just heard, Hillcrest was founded in 1815. That's more than 200 years ago, and about a century before the 1918 pandemic. So, Juanita, what's the secret to keeping a nonprofit up and running for so long?
Well, I think that there are 2 things. One, passion, and the other, purpose. And for over 200 years, Hillcrest has been passionate about our mission, passionate about serving people, passionate about making a difference in our community, and we have served with purpose every single day. And you can imagine pandemics, wars, all kinds of things have happened in our history over the last really 205 years. But we have gotten up every day with passion and purpose to serve. So I think that those 2 things are truly the keys to our success at Hillcrest.
Wow, that's amazing. And it makes a lot of sense. Passion and purpose. It keeps you going and it reminds you of what you're there to do.
Absolutely.
That's wonderful. Now, Hillcrest provides emotional support for kids, but it also helps out adults and families. Did the demand for mental health services increase during the pandemic?
Well, absolutely. I think more so than demand, the need increased. And but individuals are so caught up in dealing with the stresses of managing through the pandemic that reaching out for help was not something that was very common or natural. And because there's a stigma associated with seeking mental health services. So one of the things that we did at Hillcrest in order to support our community is we took advantage of, there were various grants available and various opportunities to serve in a different way. So one of the things that we did is we implemented what we called a care van. So we got a van, was supported with funds from our community and with some federal dollars. We dressed the van up, we painted it up, we put a loudspeaker on it, and into the community we went with our message for people to get well, to learn what they needed to learn about COVID, to know where they needed to go to be tested, where they needed to go to get their vaccination. And so we just went to outreach. We took our van and our services and our energy and our concern for our community to the giant parking lot, to the neighborhoods. Our approach was a block by block approach to help people to understand these are the things that are available to you even during this time. And while we were providing information about the pandemic, we also were there to provide support and encouragement and assessment to engage individuals who would be in need of mental health services.
Okay, so but you are seeing that people are kind of hesitant about seeking such services.
That is true, and that has been, historically, the stigma of seeking mental health services is the biggest barrier to care. And so what we are here to say, and at every opportunity, I wanted to say to mind your mental health and do not be ashamed to seek out services that support your overall wellness.
Oh, thank you so much. That is a very important message. Thank you so much. Now, Shannon, Beacon House also serves school-age kids, and much of your programming is targeted at residents of an affordable housing complex called Edgewood Commons. You have one-on-one and group tutoring, an athletics program, after-school programs, even a summer camp, and that's a lot going on there. So how are these programs affected, and how were you able to keep up with all of them?
Yeah, so, and thank you again for having me this morning. What you just mentioned really requires a lot of in-person interaction, right? Summer camps, one-on-one tutoring. Our challenge was really trying to figure out how to do all of this in a virtual environment when no virtual model existed. So our staff had to pivot and come up with a plan to not only build a virtual model, but build one that kept students engaged. Because that was the primary focus for us, keeping the children engaged, but also keeping the staff equipped to make sure that the kids were engaged on a daily basis by providing the programming that everyone was so used to. We were able to operate in a virtual environment from March of last year to June of this year, providing virtual academic tutoring. We also operated a virtual or a hybrid virtual summer camp this year with 3 days 3 days virtual and 2 days in person, but outdoors. And then one of the other things that we really wanted to focus on last year, outside of the pandemic, was the social unrest that was taking place in our country and in our city. And we knew that after the murder of George Floyd and the incidents of police brutality that we were all witnessing almost nightly on our televisions, that our children would probably have questions. We, as adults, were having trouble processing what we were witnessing. And so we couldn't imagine what the kids were trying to process and reconcile on top of everything else. And so as part of that virtual learning environment, we also started doing virtual mental wellness checks. and virtual physical wellness checks,
Awesome.
just to make sure that everyone was okay. But none of this could have been done without the amazing staff and staff leadership that we have at Beacon House. I can't say more about the leadership and the staff and how quickly they were able to come together and put this plan in place that allowed our programs to continue to flourish.
Wow, that is amazing. And I'm so glad that you addressed the unrest that was happening, because you're correct. If you're working with school-age children and how it affected us as adults, we can only imagine how it affected those kids. And I'm glad that you guys were able to address that. We've seen ways in which the COVID-19 pandemic has exacerbated inequities we were seeing before 2020. What are you seeing with your students and your families now?
Lisa, 96% of our students are African American, 4% are Hispanic and Latino. We saw the way that COVID disproportionately impacted communities of color, specifically Black and Brown communities, last year. Edgewood Commons was no exception. Enterprise Community Development, the owner of Edgewood Commons, reported that multiple residents passed away from COVID during the pandemic.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah. And so adding to that, the economic downturn. You have an area that already experiences very high unemployment. According to resident data, 36% of our residents are unemployed. And the average annual household income is $12,000. This was pre-pandemic. And so the economic downturn made things much worse for some of our families. So when we take the financial insecurity, job insecurity, there were a number of layoffs also reported by residents in Edgewood Commons. In some cases, food insecurity and isolation, coupled with death and sickness. Now we're talking about mental health, and Juanita talked about that. This is something that we're also seeing with our residents, a lot of mental health challenges that may have been there before, but are definitely present now.
Wow, my goodness. So what you guys do, again, really proves to be extremely important.
Absolutely.
Extremely important. Now, we only have a few minutes left, but quickly, did either of your organizations find ways of operating that you plan to stick with beyond the pandemic?
Definitely. For every crisis, there's an opportunity. And we certainly look for more opportunities to serve. One of the things that we're excited about moving forward is we have implemented telehealth and video health, and our clients have become accustomed to utilizing their various devices to contact their therapists and to have virtual sessions, and we will be continuing that. We also have a hybrid. Our staff, very fine, wonderful staff. Want to always shout out to the staff of Hillcrest Children and Family Center. The staff have been working from home and in the clinic. We were deemed essential employees, so we did not close at all during the time. And even now, as the pandemic still continues. So there are many things that we've learned from ourselves individually, as well as corporately, that we will continue to make us stronger, hopefully for another 205 years.
Great, great. And what about you, Shannon?
Well, as I mentioned before, the mental health challenges, we really wanted to do something to address what we were seeing. And so we partnered with Dr. Monica Ruiz of the George Washington University Milken Public Health Institute to come up with a comprehensive plan to address the mental health challenges for our families and our children. So she's working with us to come up with questions that we should be asking, how to identify these challenges, and how to work with children and families and support them as they may be going through things that we are unaware of.
Okay, great, great. Well, but thank you both for being with us today and for continuing the wonderful work. We really appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you for having us.
You're welcome. During part 2 of DCTV's special program, we'll talk to 2 more organizations that serve our area's kids and the unhoused. But first, we caught up with Comfort Cases, another DC-based organization that's serving kids in the foster care system. Here's how they powered through the last year.
My name is Rob Shear, and I am the founder of a national nonprofit called comfort cases. I actually entered foster care when I was 12 years old. I remember walking up the first foster home carrying a trash bag, not knowing what tomorrow will bring. When my children arrived, all carrying a trash bag, I knew that something had to change. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to make sure that we eliminated trash bags in our foster care system. Over 438,000 children are in foster care. And we know that the majority of them walk around carrying a trash bag. Every bag gets a book, they get an activity, a blanket, a stuffy, pajamas, lotion, shampoo, conditioner, bar of soap. So when volunteers couldn't come into my center until our governor had made us essential, my family came in. We rolled up our sleeves and we packed cases and we shipped them out. The problem is, we actually saw a drop in all of our orders. The reason that the number slowed down was because the children who come into foster care, we know the statistics show us 83% of those children enter foster care because a call was made by a frontline worker, a teacher. Well, guess what? Kids weren't in classrooms any longer. But I knew that on my watch, we were going to continue to keep pushing forward. We had so many amazing volunteers make masks, and all of those masks went into our cases. We still actually get some masks that come in, and by the way, we still put them in our cases. We know that kids within our country under the age of 12 are not able to be vaccinated and still should wear a mask. This pandemic, it taught us all so much. It taught us to slow down. It taught us to think truly about what's important. But what I hope that it really taught us is that each and every one of us, each of us, deserve to have each other and to understand that we all can get through this. And the most valuable thing for each of us is our neighbors. And that, I can truly tell you, is a fact.
In March of 2020, the DC Policy Center surveyed the region's nonprofit organizations to study the scope of the COVID-19 pandemic's effect on their work. Respondents said they saw a greater need for services, but had fewer means to meet them. They also worried about the long-term financial impact of that increase in services. We have two more organizations that we're speaking with today. Sienna Marcellin is the Special Events Associate of So Others Might Eat, or SOME, and Anne Marie Bensner is the Executive Director of Court-Appointed Special Advocates, or CASA, of Prince George's County. Thank you both for being here today.
Thank you.
As Rob just told us, the foster care system stirs up unique challenges in any given year, and that certainly was quite evident during the pandemic. CASA of Prince George's County partners with juvenile courts to help victims of abuse and neglect. Let's take a moment to find out what CASA stands for and what its volunteers have been up to.
The most important thing for people to know is that foster youth have experienced multiple forms of trauma which can lead to lifetime impacts. But CASA can help to put them on a path to a more productive and positive future. Court-Appointed Special Advocate, CASA of Prince George's County, was founded to address the unmet needs of youth in foster care. We train and supervise volunteers from the community who advocate for the best interest of children. Every child deserves a qualified, caring adult to support them and help them thrive. To change a child's story, visit pgcasa.org.
Anne Marie, according to the CDC, public health emergencies increase the risk of child abuse because of heightened stress, school closures, loss of income, and social isolation. How did your organization tackle all of that?
So in the very beginning, when we first learned that we would be closing down and having to change everything that we did, we honestly had to take a moment and think through how we could possibly rearrange all of the in-person visits that our volunteer advocates did with the children and their families, how we were arranging for visitation between family members and sibling visits, as well as all the services that our children normally receive in the community. And it was quite overwhelming. And we had about a minute to think that through. And then we realized that we had technology available to us, and we were able to find support in the community to pay for our young people and their biological families to use that technology as well. We supported cell phone bills for about 6 months to make sure that our children and their families could communicate through video chat so that they could see each other even when they couldn't visit in person. I think it is amazing to think about children could not see their mothers or their fathers in person for quite a few months, and how that could impact a young person without any real understanding of the reasons why. And so our volunteers were able to bridge that gap. They used every thing that they could think of in terms of FaceTime and Google Chats and Google Classroom and Zoom and whiteboards to play games with the children online, to make sure that they had someone who checked in with them on a regular basis. Normally, we ask our volunteers to do that twice per month. In the first months of the pandemic, we asked them to do it weekly, just to make sure that someone had eyes on the children, and to make sure that just the very basic things that they needed were able to be provided. Over time, we were able to, settle into that routine of checking in on our children, communicating with the Department of Social Services, as well as the court systems, to become really flexible and creative around visitation, outdoor visitation. We provided masks to families and volunteers, just to make sure that they could see each other in the safest way possible, and so that no one, unnecessarily became ill, volunteers, staff, children, families.
Oh, wow. It sounds like you guys really, really stepped up and made sure that they did not feel isolated and that they still felt that support, that much needed support. Awesome. Awesome. Now, CASA also helps teens and young adults between the age of 14 and 21 to connect with jobs and prepare for interviews. Were there enough job interviews to go around for you to continue doing that part of the program?
So we did continue that program, and we actually went from a pilot to a full-time project during the pandemic.
Wow.
We realized that our children needed more supports. They needed to have someone who could help them with resumes and interview and job prep. We also needed to have a full-time staff person who could check in with both the older youth and their volunteers around the opportunities that were starting to become more frequent come September. It took the job readiness programs a little bit of time to also change and to offer their services online, but it was an opportunity for our young people to take advantage of the job readiness training programs that are available in the community that were now virtual. Our young people were competing with everyone else for jobs, especially the frontline work. Not all of them were prepared to do that work, and not all of them were chosen, over all of the other people who were also seeking employment.
Yes.
And so what our CASA volunteers were able to do was to provide grocery cards on a monthly basis to help support our youth who were not working and didn't have the supplemental income to get them through the pandemic. We are still offering that support on a monthly basis, and will continue to do so through the end of the year.
Wonderful. Oh, that is fantastic. All right. Now, switching gears now, just by the title alone, we might assume that your organization, So Others Might Eat, only provides nutritional services. But Sienna, you also offer services for seniors who were some of the most vulnerable during the pandemic. How did the community center and emergency housing program function, if at all?
So, to start, So Others Might Eat does way more than just feeding people who may need it. We have a ton of comprehensive services. It's almost hard to put in a short spiel. But our senior center, I think they had maybe one of the most miraculous turnarounds from my point of view. The senior center, it was closed, and it was unfortunate because a lot of our seniors, they look forward to getting together and having their activities and playing bingo and doing all those things that they love to do. But our team turned around quickly and got them set up and trained on how to use Zoom. They got iPads. I was talking recently to someone in our program, and she was telling us, oh no, I can log on the Zoom. I got it. They trained us. So even thinking health-wise, I mean, it definitely ties into our medical services at our main location at 71 O Street. They kicked in gear too. They got kiosks set up. They were doing virtual telehealth visits. It was absolutely amazing. And when it comes to the emergency housing for seniors, that was still available. We still made all of those things available. Some does not shut down. On a regular day, we say we're there 365 days of the year. No excuses. And that continued. There was not a day that we didn't give our clients the support that they need. We're always on a mission to uplift and help and support however we can do it. And we weren't going to let the pandemic stop us from doing that.
Oh, awesome. Well, it sounds like some was getting a little sum of everything for those seniors, right? Did they like the signing in and all of that with the Zoom?
We had a whole bunch of activities. We had cooking demos, yoga, just chatting time, therapy time. It was absolutely spectacular.
Great. Now, some also reaches out to the unhoused to support them. Mayor Muriel Bowser's Point in Time survey, which was recorded in January of 2021, found that overall homelessness decreased in the city, but chronic homelessness increased. How was that reflected last year, and what trends did you see?
I think that is definitely a problem that we see on a normal basis. A lot of people are struggling with homelessness, and people have different ideas of what homelessness looks like. It's not everyone who is at the tent camps. That's not just everyone who's homeless. There's tons of people who are struggling with homelessness, and it's people that you don't even suspect. I did a special during March talking about hunger and homelessness. And one of the big things I wanted to highlight to people is that college students, they're a huge population of people who are struggling from homelessness. And it doesn't look like it. Sometimes you don't even realize, maybe I'm a young person. Sometimes I don't realize even some of my friends may be homeless, they're couch surfing, and you don't think about it like that. So with people losing jobs, with people losing stability, families losing stability, there's a lot of people who were jumping from house to house and staying with friends, staying with families, with family members. But a lot of people were struggling, and we definitely saw the need increase.
Every new piece of information is requiring us to think through things we've never thought of before. And we're going to keep on doing that and serving our children and youth.
Okay, great. Well, you're doing a fantastic job, and we really thank you for serving the communities here in the DC area.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you.
And again, thanks for joining us and for all that you do for the community. And to our viewers at home, thank you for tuning in to our two-part special today. For DC TV, I'm Lisa Haynes.
We are glad that you are here with us on this special day of programming as we pay tribute to the incredible and critical work that nonprofit organizations are doing to make an impact in our community each and every day. I'm Julia Reardon, Grants Manager and Producer here at DC TV. One of the many reasons that we are here today is to highlight the hard work of our nonprofit grantees serving Washington, D.C. and the greater DMV area. Through our grant program, we engage storytelling, nonprofit expertise, and showcase the impactful work that that our awarded grantees are doing in the district and beyond. The vision for the DCTV Nonprofit Capacity Building Grant Program really started many years ago. We have always known how critical the nonprofit sector is in DC, the mecca for nonprofits. So many people are served by nonprofits in so many ways, so we started working with nonprofits to help create and distribute meaningful media that is impactful. The DCTV Nonprofit Capacity Building Grant Program was established in 2019 to help nonprofit organizations build their media capacity and to provide video benefits directly to the hands of nonprofits by having them appear in our DCTV produced original programs. We wanted to share expertise from nonprofit leaders in a different way for our communities. This year, we have had 2 grant cycles join us. These are the recipients of the 3rd and 4th cohort of grantees. As we press through these unprecedented times, while we continue to see the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, we are now more than ever invigorated with our purpose to enhance nonprofit media capacity in these times where video and visual storytelling is needed more than ever. Congratulations to our grantees. We invite all nonprofit organizations who serve Washington, D.C. and the greater DMV area to apply for the Nonprofit Capacity Building Grant. We award grants twice a year, in January and in July, so if your organization is interested in applying for this unique grant opportunity, please visit us online at www.dctv.org/grants to find out more about the program and how to apply. Let us help your organization tell quality stories about the important work that you do to make a positive impact in our community.